Tez, former Pro Bowl quarterback and current Cowboys National Analyst for Compass Media, is joining us on the Fan Cam, Twitch, and YouTube. Steve Beuerlein on the home of America's Team with Shan and RJ 105.3 The Fan. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you joining us. So we're getting a little bit concerned that the Cowboys Kool-Aid is overfloweth right now. A lot of people, contender, top 5, amazing offseason. What are your thoughts on what the Cowboys have done so far and up to this point after the draft?
Well, this is the most excited I've been. I'm drinking the punch, too, about the Cowboys going into a season. I think when you look at what they've done this whole offseason, everything was done with a purpose that you can really justify and understand. And they identified some areas, especially through the draft, by going with defense on the first 2 picks. I think 2 players that really are going to be impact players early on with Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence, bringing pressure. And then obviously Caleb Downs offering hopefully stability and longevity and consistent play at safety moving forward. Those are things that really have been a problem for the Cowboys. And, the big question, obviously, is what's going to happen with George Pickens long term. Everybody's asking questions about that, but nobody really has a lot of concerns about the offense. And truly, I think now this year, with what they've done, the Cowboys have done this offseason, I really think it's going to come down to whether Dak can stay healthy at this point in his career and whether he can make the big plays in the big games down the stretch that they're going to have to make to be a contender, be a legitimate contender. Because I think they've got enough talent on both sides of the ball now to be able to compete with anybody.
Steve, when you look at the way that offense operated last year and you saw them a ton and you probably saw all those busts on the defensive side and just how difficult it was for them at times to stop opponents. But when you look at the offense and what they're building on, is it reasonable to expect they can perform at that same level or maybe even surpass it, or is there a little bit of regression that might be expected?
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell what they're going to be at from a metric standpoint, from an analytics standpoint with the statistics and all that kind of stuff. Who knows how they're going to measure up versus last year overall throughout the course of the season. But truly what it comes down to, and you guys know this, if you're serious football fans, it comes down to the key plays and the big games that are going to determine whether or not you win that game. The untimely turnover, the taking advantage of a receiver who's open, a missed throw. Those are going to be the determining factors down the stretch in the big games that really make a difference. I don't think production is going to be an issue for the Cowboys. It hasn't been, as long as Dak has been healthy, it hasn't been an issue for the Cowboys during the course of his career. But I do think the question mark, if you can point at anything where Dak really has to prove himself, as we all know, the playoff record and the big games down the stretch, that's where he's got to take it on his shoulders and say, we're in position to win these games. We've got to find a way to get it done with everything on the line. So I think they're going to be very competitive. I'm not worried about the offense as long as Dak is healthy. And I think the defense is going to be good enough. And obviously they're going to get better with experience with these young players, but they're going to be good enough and impactful enough defensively to compete with anybody.
Steve Beuerlein with us here on 105.3 The Fan. Steve, when you watched all those issues that Dallas had defensively last year, especially through the eyes of a quarterback and how to attack a defense, what did you see? Did you just see flat out that was a team that didn't communicate, that was a team that didn't know responsibilities, or did you just see that's a lack of talent and you need to change over that roster, change over that side of the ball if you want to be better?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I think there were injuries that impacted the Cowboys going into the season. DeMarvion Overshown was not healthy going into the season. And truly, I don't think he ever really got into a flow and was as impactful as hopefully he will be this year. You look at the inconsistency and the injuries at safety. There were a lot of busted coverages early in the season. That was a major issue. And, the question about Matt Eberflus as a defensive coordinator, that's been addressed. There was obviously a lot of major communication issues through the first half to 2/3 of the season. I couldn't believe how consistently every single week there was some kind of a busted coverage that allowed for a receiver to be running wide open down the middle of the field. Now, I do think that one of the big issues early in the season last year for the Cowboys was running the football defensively against the run. And the big trade for Quinnen Williams, obviously during the bye week, I think addressed that issue very well. He was a real stabilizing force internally for the Cowboys defensively. If there is still a concern now for me, it's the middle linebacker position and addressing that long term. Are they going to be able to really find a guy they can count on to really manage that defense on the inside from a linebacker, second level position? That's the one area that to me is still a question mark. But, Quinnen Williams, I think, has got a lot of juice left in his tank. That was a great move by Jerry Jones during the season last year by the Cowboys. And, I think that was as significant as anything in terms of impactful and I think reason for optimism going into this season.
Steve Beuerlein joining us here on the home of the Cowboys, Cowboys Compass media analyst for obviously the NFL and college. I'm trusting AI on this, so blame them if I'm wrong. Was Fangio there with you in Carolina in '96?
Yeah, he was. I was with Vic Fangio. He was. He and Dom Capers go back a long ways, and Vic was our defensive coordinator in '96, and I think '97 and possibly '98 as well. I can't remember when he left, but he was there with us when we went to the NFC Championship in '96. Yeah,
I knew I should have trusted my brilliant football instinct on that. Steve,
yeah, that's good.
Explain for us principles of a Fangio defense. A lot of people, Christian Parker, Fangio. What is it like as a quarterback? Facing it, seeing it with the complications it can present, and how you've seen it evolved from the booth now calling games.
Well, I think one thing that Vic Fangio has proven over the years, and I should say there's three things, but there's one thing that I think really stands out is that consistently his defenses are ready to play. You are not going to see up and down, throughout the course of the season where they play at a very high level one week and a very unacceptable level the next week. That is not going to happen with Vic Fangio in control of the defense. That's first and foremost. Secondly, you're going to see a defense that's going to be very physical, very tough. They're not going to back down from anybody. They're going to challenge teams offensively to make plays and to be tougher than them. The team will play defensively with an attitude of, hey, you think you're going to walk out of here with, without a little bit of blood? That's not going to happen today. You're going to get hit in the mouth and you're going to get hit all day long. That's a mentality that Vic Fangio brings to the equation. Whenever they show the camera on him, and I remember this with Vic, we used to try very hard to try to get him just to smile. He never looks like he's having fun. He never looks like he's just in a good mood. He always looks pissed off. And that's just kind of the way his mentality is. It's what's, I think, made him so successful at this level. At his age, for how long he's been doing it, he just brings a nasty attitude into every single week, does not accept anything other than toughness and consistent dominance week after week. And it's been a trademark of his defenses everywhere he's been.
Steve, you brought up Dak earlier and not winning the big one yet, having to prove himself in those big moments. When fans see a player who hasn't won, who's been good, they immediately go to, he's a bum, he'll never win. How do former players or current players at the time view a quarterback who's pretty clearly been around to one of the 10 best, but just hasn't gotten it done in the postseason?
Well, I don't think there's a question in the locker room, about whether Dak is the undisputed leader of this football team. I don't think there's a question about whether he has the ability to get it done in the big games. I don't think there's a question about whether or not he is worth, the status and the economic pay scale that he's at and he's been at for a long time because of what he's earned and what he's proven over the years. But there still is that question mark. And I think more than anything, it should motivate him. And it should be something that he addresses and gets out in front of and say, hey, coming into this year, it's on me. the organization has addressed all the issues that anybody can identify as being potential issues for this team. Now it's on me to say, okay, let's get this thing to the finish line and let's show that we can go deep in the playoffs and make a run at this. Because we really have nobody to point a finger at and no excuses to make. And I think that's the attitude Dak will bring into it. And the rest of the league, I know, respects him, but I guarantee you, when you get down the stretch, when you get to those big games at the end of the year, or if you're going into the playoffs, I guarantee you that the other team is going to be mentioning the Dak Prescott. They're going to be reminding their team, hey, this guy has not gone deep into the playoffs in his whole career. He's one of the highest paid players in the NFL, in NFL history. And he's never gone deep into the playoffs. Let's see if we can continue that streak. So, that monkey's on his back until he gets it off his back.
Steve, put on your draft tab for us and let us know what you thought about Caleb Downs coming out and some of the other picks that you really loved or you questioned, particularly in the NFC East with the draft that just happened. What did you think of Downs? Did you have thoughts on Reese and Styles, receiver, anything else that happened inside the division and with the Cowboys?
Well, I haven't really, I haven't really studied the division on a whole yet. I've got a few months left before I get into the in-season mode. But in general, I thought the Cowboys did a great job. There was a lot of talk with the George Pickens situation that the Cowboys might go with that receiver that went to New Orleans. Tyson, yeah. I know that the Cowboys were kind of infatuated with him and really focused on him and his ability maybe as a difference maker. And there are people painting the picture that maybe the Cowboys might not be able to pass up on him because of the George Pickens situation especially. But I was glad. I think he went at 9. To New Orleans, and I was really happy when they took that temptation off the board and the Cowboys went with what they should have done, which was either going to be a safety, in my opinion, or an edge rusher. They ended up getting Malachi Lawrence with the 23rd pick, so they addressed those two positions first and foremost, which I thought is where they had their biggest need. But as far as breaking down the rest of the division, I do like what the Giants did, and by the way, opening the season up with the Giants. I think, is that game in New York?
Yeah.
Or is it in Dallas? Yeah, it's in New York. The Giants, I think, they're a team that if anybody asks me who I think a sleeper team is this year, it's the Giants. Because bringing John Harbaugh into it, that immediately brings a credibility and a proven track record of how to be a physical, tough, winning football team consistently. The Giants are going to be transformed just because of him, number one. And then I really like what they did in the first round and then throughout the course of the draft as well. They addressed needs that were big question marks. And I think they're going to be a different team because of it. And the big question for them, again, it's going to come back to the quarterback, whether Jackson Dart can stay healthy, stay on the field, and make the progress that he needs to make from a maturity standpoint as a quarterback. I still think he's one of those guys that believes he's kind of a Superman mentality that, that he's the show, so to speak, and that he's arrived. Well, as we all know, year 2 in the NFL as a starting quarterback is a huge difference from year 1. Teams have studied the film. They've looked at things that you've struggled with. They've identified areas of weakness, and they're going to come out and change it up on you. And you're going to have to show that you can adjust and adapt and develop. So that's going to be the big challenge for New York and Jackson Dart.
Speaking of AI, Steve Beuerlein here on behalf of HeartFlow. 1 in 3, up to 1 in 3 retired professional football players die from cardiovascular disease. Steve, tell us how you're helping with it.
Well, my main goal here with HeartFlow and the Game Film Registry, which is designed truly to get the word out to former NFL players about the issue of heart disease. As you said, 1 in 3 former NFL players is dying due to heart disease. And that is a staggering number when you compare it, especially. It may not sound like a difference when you break it down statistically, but the normal population is 1 in 5. But that's a difference between 20% and 33%. There's a reason for that. Former players need to be aware of it. The word needs to get out, and HeartFlow has addressed it by this new AI-powered, state-of-the-art, first-of-its-kind technology that really analyzes the heart from a 3D perspective, breaks down where the plaque is building up, both hard plaque and soft plaque, which may not seem like a difference to most people out there, but there's a huge difference between that. There's no other technology that can break down and identify the soft plaque, which is really what causes most of the problems, because that soft plaque can break off and get into the arteries and clog it up more significantly than what all the other tests out there now test for. That's the hard plaque. And so it's a state-of-the-art technology. I'm excited to be a part of it. I've gone through the scan myself, and whether the results come out good or bad, unfortunately for me, the results were very good when I went through it. But it confirms one way or the other whether you have issues. And when you get to be our age, I'm now 61. You start losing friends, and for reasons that could have been prevented. And that's the whole purpose of HeartFlow and the Game Film Registry, is to try to identify heart disease early so it can be treated. You can get out in front of it and hopefully make a difference and extend lives.
Well said. Thank you so much for the time, man. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you as the season gets closer. Enjoy the schedule release tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.